Hey everyone, Brett here with Logos Veritas. Wanted to talk to you for a little bit here this evening, um, for those of you that are still with us, about altars of remembrance, starting into our biblical rocks series here. This is part one, talking about biblical rocks, because you know what? Who doesn't like talking about rocks? That's why you're here. It's not why you're here. All right. We're here to help you grow in your walk with the Lord, to help you to train, like, to love God, love other people, make disciples. Right. That's why we're here on the channel. However, tonight, I wanted to be able to talk to you guys here for just a few minutes about altars of remembrance. They come up a few times in the Bible, and they come up. There's at least three, I think, that come up with Jacob. There's where he's at Bethel, and there's at least one, maybe two, right off the top of my head. I'm thinking here, where he makes them before he meets Esau, because he's worried Esau is going to kill him. There's also Joshua makes one. Let me hop over here. Joshua makes one in Joshua chapter 4. 12 memorial stones from the Jordan. And they're talking about different stones here, but yeah, not an uncommon theme to when the Lord does something beyond the pale, right? Something that's like, man, God really came through. He provided for us. He brought us out of where we were to a new place, or he's drawn near to us. We're going to make an altar here, not only to offer up incense to him, and today we would see that as our prayers, right? The incense that we offer up to him, the life that we live, and the prayers that we offer up to him. But and not only to offer those up, but also so that later when we come back through here, we will be reminded of what the Lord has done, right? So Old Testament, yeah, we get that. And if I'm living back then, odds are I'm probably going to need to make one of those myself, because I don't know if you guys are at all like me. We've slept in the last 20 years, and the Lord's done some awesome things for me and my family growing up. He saved me from just a dead religious life and brought me into a vibrant relationship with him, where it's not always easy, but you know what? I know he's with me. He watches out for me. It's not that nothing ever goes wrong, but I know that he's always with me and helps me to keep going. He gives me the strength to push through when things are going rough, not the magic ticket to get out of trouble whenever I want to, right? He's been really good. Just so many things we could go into, but we're not going to do right now because I want to respect your time. But getting into just a few things, right? Altars of remembrance, if they were important back in the Old Testament, all right, and we even see here, I'm over in here towards the end of the Bible. It's mentioned. Not necessarily altars of remembrance, but talking about stones here, about living stones. Stones that continue on, that can continue perpetuating something, that carry on some kind of a theme, an idea, an essence of something that's taken place. Whether we realize it or not, I'm over at website here for Viral Believer, where they're saying, whether we realize it or not, God has placed stones of remembrance in the midst of our world today as well. They are called living stones, and you and I are those stones. 1 Peter 2:5, which is really good, and it says, and you are living stones that God is building into his spiritual temple. What's more, you are his holy priests. Jesus, you offer spiritual sacrifices that please God. And when you partner this with where in the book of Revelation, where there's the letter to the church of Philadelphia, a place that was renowned for the earthquakes that they experienced. And God says that he was going to raise them up as a supporting pillar in his temple, and that they would be praised by God. They would be recognized by God for, and lifted up by him for maintaining to the end if they in fact did so. We see there's precedent anyway in the New Testament for stones that carry on, that are living, that proclaim what the Lord has done, carrying on this theme of remembering things that the Lord has done in the past. Many of you may know, some of you may not, it's all right, you may or may not know about the revival that took place in Brownsville on Father's Day of 1995 is when it took place. And I remember listening to Pastor Kilpatrick. I was down there for several years with my family from 96 to about October of 2001. And I remember Pastor Kilpatrick several times talking about how he wasn't even really focused in that day on being there. He was worn out. He didn't want to be there. He brought Steve Hill in to preach on Father's Day when he was kind of expected to preach, but they're going to have Steve Hill preach anyway. Come in as a guest speaker, as a missionary to Argentina. Where he and his wife Jerry were missionaries, and but God came in and did something incredible there. They saw literally a few million people come through the church, people being impacted by God, lives transformed, people got healed. It was incredible. And having been there, I feel really blessed. The Lord opened up the opportunity for my family and I to be there and to be poured into the way that we were, which has helped me to be able, it's really primed me to be able to launch into the calling that he's placed on my life and that I've been able to move into since then. But it's moving on from there. Altars of remembrance, like looking back at what happened at Brownsville in 1995, or looking back at, say, Pentecostalism in general, where, at least in modern context, early 1900s, around 1905, 1906, with the Azusa Street revival, the Azusa Street outpouring, where people were seeing like flames coming up off of the meeting house there at Azusa Street, and the fire department would get there, and there's actually no flames there. It's just the presence of the Lord is there in such a powerful, pronounced, not tangible but visible kind of way that it looks like the place is on fire because of the intensity of the Spirit of the Lord that's there. That is cool to read about. They got newspaper clippings and everything. Coming that date back to there, and people whose stories have been passed on from being present there, eyewitness accounts that have been passed on from there. So looking back at things that he's done there, things that he's done in the Bible, looking even into things that he's done for you in your life, whether you've received a chronic or terminal medical diagnosis, and maybe the Lord's brought you through that, maybe he hasn't, but he's given you the strength to persevere in spite of receiving a bad report anyway. And to certain extents, I've known and have been in some of these situations myself, where you look back and think, man, Lord, if you hadn't stepped in, I don't know what I would have done there. I wouldn't be here, Lord. These altars of remembrance can become, they are important because it is important to look back on what the Lord has done and to tell generation after generation about the goodness of the Lord. We're told in the Old Testament, the children of Israel were supposed to do that with their descendants, and somewhat did. Not always, but um, I mean, we do have the Bible, so we do know that that did take place. And it's something that we are supposed to do as disciples, right? To go to make disciples. And part of making disciples is, according to the Great Commission in Matthew chapter 28, we are supposed to be teaching them to obey the commands of Jesus, to not only to obey his commands, but like to teach them the things that he's passed on to us. And so we, in a sense, like it says in the verse that we referenced there from Peter, we are living stones. We are, like Paul would say, submitted to God as living sacrifices. So it's good to have these altars of remembrance. The thing you got to be careful of whenever you make an altar to something is that, especially when it comes to remembrance, is that you don't begin to worship the thing that the Lord did in place of the Lord at this altar. So what I mean is Brownsville would be a good example, that some people look at what some people did and somewhat still do from time to time. You hear about it, but the last time that the Lord moved was marked by certain behaviors, maybe certain methods, song selection, preaching style, different things that all factor into there, and each person's individual experience. And there can be the tendency to think, well, because he moved this way last time, this has got to be the way that it is for God to move, and we have to replicate this as much as possible. Which is why, like part of the reason, like today, is in some church circles, it's becoming popular to remove your pulpit, to just have an open floor kind of concept, which is not bad. But just because it works for another church doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for your church. There is, need to pursue the Lord on this before we decide that we're going to do this because this is what we got to do in order to stay relevant. Well, what works for one place because of faith that they have might not work for where you're at or for where I'm at. And for me to presume that because it works for this maybe awesome church that is working really well in the context that the Lord has placed them in, where he's entrusted them to be, it might in fact be presumptuous for me and even sinful. Presumption is never looked on well in scriptures. Feel free to look it up for yourself. It might be presumptuous for me to just move on in there in the same way that this other church did, and to expect that God's going to bless me because I model what he told somebody else to do. And altars of remembrance are similar in that, where it can be tempting to worship the thing that we are thankful for, like a healing. Maybe we get excited that a healing has taken place, and we want to share that that experience and the fact that healings do take place today, right? Miracles do take place, and that this is something that is available to people through the price, like through the payment of Jesus. It can become easy, though, to focus on that so much that we begin to not remember what the Lord has done, but to remember that an event took place and the Lord gets separated from that. And we got to really guard against that. The Lord has in Scripture does not look on it lightly when people do not speak rightly of him, when he is not given glory for things he has done, when people puff themselves up in a prideful sort of way and, well, look, things are going so well, we don't need God. And if we're not careful, altars of remembrance can turn into that. That being said, it is very healthy to look back on times in your life when, man, you wouldn't have gotten through it. Maybe you didn't have money for groceries and gas that week to get to work, and you had to make a choice, and the Lord came through for you. Or you felt like you had no purpose in life. You didn't know where you were going, where you didn't feel like anybody cared. You were coming down to the end of your rope, and suddenly God reached down and met you where you were at and showed you the way forward. Known people who that's happened to, and that's their story, or they weren't quite sure about who they were. They were struggling with identity and in multiple areas of identity, and, well, maybe God doesn't have a plan for me, was what one guy who I was friends with in college said. That, well, maybe, I don't know, it feels like God's forgotten about me, and it feels kind of like he's left me to fend for myself. And today, that is not his story. He is close to the Lord. He has found not only identity for himself, but he is also he's gotten married since then. He's got kids, and none of that looks like a possibility. It's almost 10 years ago. That's crazy. Anyway, altars of remembrance. What has the Lord done in your life? For me, I've had a diagnosis of type 1 diabetes, right? I've been able to be a part of the Brownsville revival. I was brought out of, I did English education for a while, which was awesome. Enjoyed that. And it got me out of working in the factory, which was good, but probably not exactly for me. If I had a choice. But he brought me out of those and into what I felt like from the beginning he had called me to do, and really just opened up doors where it seemed like there was no way to proceed forward, and I didn't know what to do. So it's been awesome to watch him and see just how time and again he's faithful, and I'm looking forward to seeing that again soon, to see what he's got for us next, for my wife and I. But when we keep mementos about what he's done in the past, not as a way to say, the good old days, I wish we could just get back to that simpler time, or where things are really good. And no, it's good to look back to see what he has done, in so much as I remember that this is what the Lord has done. That's where I was when he was faithful. Here's where I am, and he's faithful, and that helps me to chart where am I going. And I know that if he's been faithful time and time and time and time and time again up to where I'm at, he has said that he is faithful. He's going to do what he said he will do. God's not a man that he should lie. Okay, he's not like us, where one minute he's, well, I'll bless you if you're obedient, and if you obey my commands, if you obey what I say, if you draw near to me, I'll bless you. And then, you know what, today I don't feel like it. No, he's faithful to do what he said he's gonna do. And I can tell by looking back at these different markers in my life where the Lord met me, that if he was faithful to me there, he's going to be faithful again. So I like to hear maybe in the comments about Uh, do you guys have experiences where maybe the Lord's come in, where He's done something incredible in your life, where you've got maybe an altar of remembrance of some sort, something that helps you to look back and remember how the Lord's been faithful to you, and to be able to look forward in anticipation to what He's got in store for you next? Something that helps you to praise Him, to give Him glory for what He's done, and and to move on in faith, knowing that He's faithful, that He's true, and that He wants a relationship with you. If you do, I'd like to hear about it there in the comments. If you wouldn't mind dropping me a comment. Again, this is Brett with Logos Veritas. It's been good to have you here with me. Thank you for joining. If you don't mind, please feel free to go ahead and click the like, subscribe button. It really helps us out here on the channel. And I will talk to you again here soon. Thanks, guys. See you.